Raghavan. She's the author of Dark Things. She's been writing with Filmfare and Marie Claire, and you guys know that already. So over to these two guys.
So I want to welcome you to Culture Shop.
I'm so happy to be here.
What were you like when you were a child? Did you happen to like dark things?
Yes. So I grew up in this really creaky old house, which was at least 100 years old. So, and that house had three secrets of its own. So that was the beginning of, you couldn't go to sleep without wondering what that shadow was on the wall. But I'm making it sound a little horror type, which it's not. I think growing up in a house like that with the kind of grandparents that I had, it is difficult to not be someone who loves stories. So that's where it all began, I think, with my grandparents and that old house.
Yes. And you like thunderstorms and lightning
Thunderstorm.
and stuff like that?
No, I actually really hate thunder.
Oh.
No, I like thunder. I hate lightning. I'm really scared of lightning. I can't take lightning, but I like the atmosphere. Yeah, I like the atmosphere of a storm. Okay, that's nice.
Okay. So what was your process in writing Dark Things?
When you say process, I think the most important thing about writing a book is to know that you have to finish it. If you've started it, please finish it. It doesn't matter how bad it is. It doesn't matter if you think it sucks. Please finish your first draft and be horrible to the people around you. They love you anyway. All of them are here. So I think just somehow finish that first draft and then you can get to work on it in whatever way you want.
Yeah. And how many aspiring writers or writers do we have here today?
Some are really established and well-known writers here too.
Yes. So for the aspiring ones, they'll be interested to know like how long it took you to write this book and what kind of obstacles you had.
I always find that question very difficult to answer because I think all the writers here will know that there's no starting point and an ending point to the process of writing in your head. You get a story idea and then it bubbles for maybe weeks, months, years, and then you put it down and then you abandon it and then you start again. With Dark Things, I think it was bubbling in my head for over 2 years. But then once I got my publishing contract, I had to write it in 4 months.
Yes.
So I didn't have a choice but to write it in 4 months. I think if I didn't have my publishing contract, I probably would have even taken 4-5 years to do it because I'm really lazy.
Yeah.
But the process, I think all the writers here will agree, it's never ending. I think I'm still writing Dark Things in my head, actually. I don't think I've stopped writing it.
Maybe there'll be a sequel, maybe? Or
I don't know,
prequel?
maybe, yeah. You never know, yes.
I'm waiting for the film, so.
Aren't we all?
There's a sequel to that as well.
Yeah. So tell us how you came up with your protagonist and antagonist.
So again, growing up in a house in Kerala with grandparents who told you stories of fantasy and mythology and folklore, and Kerala folklore is very rich, and we have this creature called the Yakshi in the Kerala folklore, which is a sort of female succubus vampire person who seduces men and then drinks their blood and kills them. So it literally is as pretty as that. So and there are so many stories about Yakshis in Malayalam literature, and I've grown up reading them, and I've always been obsessed with Yakshis. They say that Yakshis inhabit frangipani trees. So there was a frangipani tree in my school, and I thought there was a Yakshi there. The Ayah would tell us not to go anywhere near the tree because she said, oh, that's haunted, don't go near that tree. So yeah, kind of obsessed with Yakshis, and I guess I just had to write a story about a Yakshi.
Yeah. Okay, I wanted to ask you what your favorite fantasy novel was, but I wanted people to guess. And whoever guesses will get a Culture Shop prize.
You're close.
What was your answer?
Sandman.
American Gods.
I like how all the answers are Neil Gaiman here. Can anyone guess something that's not Neil Gaiman?
Harry Potter.
Yeah, I guess Harry Potter. Of course, the one that you've written
Yeah,
down
the
is a
original.
childhood one.
Yeah.
So actually, it's the faraway. Yeah. Sonam gets a prize.
Okay, yes.
'Cause it all started with the faraway tree, I think. Yeah.
And when did you decide that you wanted to be a writer? Or was it always something that you kind of felt like, okay, I want to be this, but then I also want a novelist rather. when did you decide that you
I
wanted to?
don't think there was one moment when I thought I wanted to be a writer. I always wrote
child.
and I always told stories. But it came so easily to me that I thought I had to do something else with my life. And I
Yes.
thought writing would only be my hobby.
Yeah.
But you know, life has other plans. So I did end up writing, and I wrote professionally, and I thought I would write more screenplays than novels, honestly, and I still get to actually complete even one screenplay. So that's a little strange. But books, I guess, I have no idea. I think Jitesh Pillai is here. I think he was the first person to concretely tell me that, you know, you write. I think maybe he was just trying to get me to do my work properly at an office. He said, you know, you write really well, so you should be published someday. So that put the idea in my head, and so I said, oh, maybe someday, why not?
Yeah.
And I guess that's where it started.
And who are some of your favorite writers?
So many.
Yeah.
I am not a very literary reader in that sense. I really like my crime novels. I love my mysteries. So I love Agatha Christie. I love the way she's written over 250 novels, and they're all amazing mysteries. My favorite book is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, who again she creates this very gothic atmosphere of suspense and mystery. I love Neil Gaiman.
Yeah.
I love Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. I think she writes beautifully. One of my newer favorite writers there's this writer called Krishna Uday Shankar who's rewritten the Mahabharata.
Okay.
So I think my tastes tend to be a little eclectic.
Let's talk about the artwork.
The idea for the cover, yes, was mine. I wanted to actually do something that was abstract. This is not at all abstract. But my publisher said, let's not do something abstract with something that's what they called young adult fantasy.
Yeah.
So, and then I extracted a few passages from my book, which then I sent to this artist that I found on Instagram, Azma Kazi. And she picked one that she really liked. And she said, let me just do what I can with this. And we worked together, actually. The publisher has shared me and Azma just worked completely together on what the cover would be. The back cover was my idea, the ravens with the blood moon. That was totally, I wanted that because that's an integral part of the book. So, yeah.
And for those who have somebody in the publishing, like have a contact in the publishing world, what advice would you give them?
I kind of completely missed all those steps because there was a contest, book writing contest, and I won that, and that's how I got. So I'm not maybe with my next book I'll probably have a better idea of how it is to actually chase publishers to publish my book. But if you already have a contract, my sincere advice would be to listen to your editor. Just listen to your editor. They usually know what they're talking about, and they love the book almost as much as you do. And keep your instincts. Don't change the stuff that instinctively you think shouldn't change. Don't be anal and egotistical about what they suggest that you cut or you change, because they really know what they're talking about. So anybody here with a publishing contract, just listen to your editor.
And are you starting to think about your next book?
Yes,
And
I'm always thinking about my next book.
Good.
I'm always thinking about my next book, my next screenplay, everything. I'm attempting something. Let's see how that works out.
Is it same genre or
Yeah,
is it
it's
different?
ideally the same genre, but I'm not sure. I will not know till I've written it fully what it is, because I just write. I don't think of genres when I write. I start writing and then it becomes a story, and then I realize, oh, you know, the publishers would probably fit it into. So even when the publisher said, oh, yours is kind of young adulty, romancy, fantasy, I said, that's your job.
Right.
My job is to write. Your job is to, you know, give it the labels and figure out your marketing stuff and market it the way you think you should.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to read this. A dream and a memory, you say? That sounds like old magic. Dwyer looked at his grandmother, wizened, sharp and toothless at 95, with all the tenacity of an old banyan tree. Magic, he repeated uncertainly. It still seemed absurd. His mind was struggling against years of living in the mundane. Now, boy, don't tell me you don't believe in magic. It has been around you ever since you were born. Dwyer considered this. Yes, he had been the boy strange things happened to, and the only person who had never seemed surprised by this was his grandmother. His father had died when he was a year old, And his mother, well, no one really spoke of her, so he wasn't sure what had happened to her. Even his grandmother wouldn't speak of her. And so he grew up, and often, in an old rambling house with its resident ghosts and talking crows, and a grandmother who was seldom faced by anything. Not even a story of the vanishing butterflies. It happened sometimes was all she had to say, neither refuting nor validating his story. Children understand magic better than adults, she said to the crows when no one was looking, but alas, they do not remain children always. He grew up, caught in a haze of half-reality, not sure what was considered real by the world and what wasn't, and more often than not, he was left alone by boys his age. And then, when he turned 16, the unrealness of his life vanished just like the butterflies. On the day of his birthday, he tried to listen in on the crows, and all he could hear was a coarse cawing and nothing else. The ghost in the attic seemed to have fled too, and he was left with the ordinariness of the world. With each passing day from then on, he forgot. He forgot that he knew, that he had once put his foot through the door to other worlds. The world he lived in consumed him, making it one of his own. Someone unable to recognize magic even if it was right under his nose. He became an adult the way adults do in this world, and all he had were his dreams, full of creatures, butterflies, and rattling old treasure chests to remind him of the magic he had so easily felt in his younger days. 10 years on, magic had come calling in a way that he could not ignore. He had known it the second he had set his eyes on her in the hotel. It had drawn on him like an old memory, and he hadn't resisted it. One doesn't have to believe in magic to know that it exists, his grandmother said while grinding tobacco between her palms. Most people, she continued, will not see good magic even if it waved an umbrella at them from atop an elephant. The not so good magic? Now that everyone is quick to grasp. They need someone to blame their troubles, you see. She inserted the tobacco into her toothless mouth. Now, what happened to you? Is it the good kind or the pesky kind? I don't know. It's this girl. A girl? There's always a girl where a nice, robust man in his prime is concerned, she spat. Are you confusing a girl for actual enchantment? No, well, she did something to me. I know it, he said. He stopped. It was awkward, if not outright embarrassing, to tell his grandmother about the girl without leaving out details. And so, haltingly, blushing violently, he managed to tell her the whole story. You have been bewitched, she said simply, and you survived. I'm not surprised. He didn't ask her why she wasn't surprised. He didn't ask her what being bewitched really meant either. All he knew was that something terrifying had happened to him, and he couldn't undo it or understand it. Is it bad what happened to me? She looked at him, her once black eyes watery and grey now. It's not good or bad. It just is. It depends on whether you're ready or not.
What's your favorite?
I think it's my favorite because I truly believe that we all have magic within us.
Yes.
I really do. And I think as children, I think Noyo's age, up to around Noyo's age, I think you genuinely recognize it. Mm-hmm. And then because of school and society and people and what you're supposed to do and not do, I think you genuinely forget to recognize it.
Yeah.
And I think art somehow brings you back to that magic, which is why Dwyer is also an artist in my book. And I think the closer you are to art of any kind, I think you are closer to that magic. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason this is my favorite, because he could have he's not aware of the magic for till he was 25, and then it comes back to him. You can't escape that kind of magic in your life. Of course, what happens to him is really scary. So I hope that does not happen to a lot of people here. But I think, that's why it's my favorite passage.
Yeah.
I'll give you a romancy Dara bit for all you Dara people here. We flew for a few hours. At some point, Dara pointed towards a misty grove of green, and I started descending. We found a little thicket in the middle of the forest with a shimmering lake at the center. It was set with strange trees whose branches seemed to fall all the way to the forest floor and snake their way around, looking unsettlingly alive. Are you sure we're safe here? Murmured Dwyer. The air was cool, and he pulled his jacket around him tighter. We should start a fire, he suggested, and set off to find dry twigs, brushing off my idea that we use magic. I shrugged and settled down under a tree. We could spend the night here in this glade before deciding what to do next. Next. It seemed like a myth, my future. Improbable and unstable. I wasn't sure where I was going or what I was supposed to do. And after I had shown Dara the way to Atla perhaps, Dwyer and I could go away as he had asked and I would never see Dara ever. Despite my current cloud of anger, the thought brought me pain, and I sighed. He sat there opposite me, sullen and quiet, his jewel blue eyes expressionless and cold. Dark, tired patches had forged themselves around his eyes, and his markings glowed only faintly. Whatever had happened to him down at the river of death had taken its toll. He looked exhausted. I knew we would have to rest a while before he was able to travel again. A tiny speck of fluorescence floated through the air, and Dara stretched out his palm. A firefly landed on it, and he smiled as his palm glowed incandescent. Soon, another one flew in, and another. I watched as 100 fireflies or more danced in a fiery pattern around the Gandharva. The little clearing lit up with an eerie green-blue light as he sat there, the fireflies hovering around him lovingly. I felt my anger wash away. I smiled at him, and even though he didn't return it, his eyes grew softer, and the lines around his mouth eased. An errant firefly tussled with my hair and lost, glowing faintly within it, and I plucked it out. I didn't know what kind of magic this was, of feeling connected, of being one, and I knew then, no matter what, that I could never leave Dara in Atla and vanish. Dara raised his hand, and the fireflies swung themselves into the air in a curious pattern, weaving in and out around themselves, strobing the air with their sprinkly light. He continued to wave his hands like the conductor of an orchestra, and I sat up, fascinated by the beauty of his magic. Finally, he swept his left hand in my direction with a flourish, and the fireflies swirled towards me and came to rest just above my head. They had become an iridescent wreath of light, and I laughed in delight. Dara's mouth curved into a smile at the corners. He waved his hands once more, a mere flicker of magical flourish, and some more fireflies wound themselves around my wrist like a golden bracelet. His gaze lingered on my wrist where my frangipani imprint glowed. "That's about as much magic as I can manage right now," he said with a weak smile. "It's beautiful," I smiled. A gentle river began to flow through the stony banks of our silence.
Okay, who was your favorite? Did you play favorites while you were writing the book?
Look at your face. Let me put it this way. I had a favorite character for writing. Like I enjoyed writing a certain character the most. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't read any of the Hera passages because they're all spoilers. She's the antagonist, and I cannot. I looked for a passage which was even mildly spoiler free, and I don't have one. So but she was my favorite character. Have I answered your question? Thank you. Yes.
Have you based any of your characters or some of their characteristics after some people you know in real life?
Oh God, I really hope none of these people exist. I would. No. Little bit maybe. Maybe Dwai a little bit, and the grandmother. Yes, no, she's probably a cocktail of all the grandmas I know.
So when you write a book, how do you construct it? Like when you especially do fiction, do you sort of think of the characters and then it sort of, is there like a map to it?
There should be, ideally. I had an idea, I had an image in my head which I pursued, especially with dark things. I just had an image of this girl who could shapeshift, and I just pursued that image. And the story literally told itself. I think if there are a couple of people here who've been part of my writing process, Nikita is one, you will know how I have literally been so surprised by how the characters just told me what to do most of the time. Like I would go to sleep intending one thing for my character, and I would wake up the next day and my character would make me write something else, literally. So, but this is me, and I usually let my instinct tell the story. And there are different writers have different processes. I mean, it really does help to have your basic story down, and character sketches and backstory if you have backstories. All of that helps. But over and above that, there is something that I call the writer's instinct, which will completely point and laugh at all the notes that you've made before. And the story will just tell itself, literally. And I think all writers' experiences, whether it's screenplay or a song, or a book. But yes, it helps to be a little organized. I do have notebooks with notes. I do have notebooks with at least 10 different endings. And I have some characters that I didn't use in the book. But mainly I think instinct is what you need.
How many rewrites? I was just going to ask. Rewrite
So you have 10
chapter.
different endings, you say?
I chose this one, yes. So, sorry, what was your question again? How many rewrites? One, when I wrote it and I thought it was the best book in the world and it didn't need a word of edit. That was my first draft, of course. And then I sent it to the publisher, and my editor, of course, called me and, no, sorry. Before that, my husband edited it, and then I realized, oh God, there's a lot of editing here. And he actually took some days off work and managed to edit my book for me. He's a really good editor. He would say things like, in chapter 3 your portal is a well, and then in chapter 6 your portal is a house. So can you please be like consistent? Like, he was really good with stuff like that. So then my kind of my pride and my vanity sort of came down a notch.
Oh shit.
So at what point does the story stop telling itself?
Never does in your head.
So then
I
when
think
do you stop listening
you
to
have
it?
to stop. You have to stop
So
when you
did
know.
stop listening to it in your head?
When you know that there are other stories to write, and those stories will then, start emerging, and somewhere I'm sure even with stuff that you've written, somewhere you do wake up even 4-5 years later, middle of the night, saying, that scene, I should have actually done this. It happens to everybody, but you have to let your stories go. They're also like children, so you have to let them go and be free, and hopefully write new ones.
If you had to pick 3 fairy tales to retell, which 3 would you pick?
Red Riding Hood, Beauty and the Beast, and Little Mermaid. Yeah. Prashant had a book.
How do you deal with a block? Like you go out on holiday or deal with a book week?
Oh, I would love to go on a holiday every time I had a block. So there are 2 parts to this answer. One is I don't actually believe that there is something called a writer's block, and the other is I do believe there's something called a writer's block. When I say I don't believe that there's something called a writer's block, I mean that when you stop writing and you say, oh, I can't get further than this and I'm stuck here, okay, get stuck here, go write another chapter, go invent another character, kill someone off. I mean, do something to, fix that writer's block. And when I say that there is something called a writer's block, yes, it is difficult sometimes, and in that case, when you do hit a stage where you cannot get any further, go for a walk, eat some ice cream, watch your favorite TV show, read your favorite book, talk to friends who are writers. If you're lucky enough to have friends who are writers, then they will hopefully
Stop their writing and help you.
yes, all the time. I'm so grateful. I have at least 3-4 people here who've done that for me, and I'm very grateful. Very grateful.
You gained some new fans.
What?
Yeah.
Really? Who are these people?
What about the girl from Toronto who had?
Oh yeah. There was this girl who did this yakshi shoot. It was really nice. You should go. If you go to my page on Facebook, you can see the pictures. She took a lot of effort for it. She actually dressed up like a yakshi and shot these pictures, and it was very flattering and very nice.
Have you been getting a lot of fan mail?
No,
No, not yet.
someone send me some, please. Twitter is good for that though.
Yeah.
Twitter is a good way for people to reach out to you and say, we loved your book.
Yeah.
That happens.
And how have you been
Great.
promoting the book on your own?
We're right here.
Yeah.
Yes, Culture Shop
What-
is
and
a
you're-
good way to promote.
You're big on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm I like Twitter. I also hate Twitter. I think everybody on Twitter knows that. You like Twitter, you hate Twitter. Twitter's been really helpful, yes.
Yeah.
Mainly on Twitter and Instagram, I think.
Yeah.
And then, of course, one can bully friends into buying the book multiple times and then reading it. Thank you for contributing to my
Did
series.
you enjoy the process of marketing your book?
Again, the answer is yes and no. There's a part of me that just wants to be this reclusive writer and write a book a year and escape to the mountains or the beaches and just have the book become this blockbuster all on its own, bestseller, blockbuster. And there's another part of me that's a control freak. It's probably my lizard brain training from my job, where you've seen how people promote movies, or you've seen how if you put something out there, then you make sure it reaches the people that it should. So yeah, I quite enjoy it actually. I don't mind it at all.
You also mentioned a movie version. So how will the grammar of writing a movie version be different? Is it the same process writing a screenplay?
I think an adaptation for Dark Things would be really difficult. Not to say that they've adapted Lord of the Rings, so it's not like you can't do fantasy. But I think if it should happen, I would like to work, if possible, with a brand new writer, like someone who's not had anything to do with the book, who would come with the movie in mind and not the book in mind. So that they are writing a screenplay completely, and my input would be, as the creator of the book, I would just tell them, okay, and hopefully be open to the changes, because you would probably need to change a lot of things from the book for the movie adaptation.
You mentioned, and of course we've been part of the process, so you mentioned creating worlds as something that you, again, equally hated and enjoyed doing. Can you tell me how you sort of, what that process is of finding a way to create another world which is different than us?
I think any story you tell, even if you set it in your hometown and you you draw from your own experiences, you're still creating a new world, right? Every writer is, even with an interview, when you write about Hrithik Roshan or Aishwarya Rai or Shah Rukh Khan, you're building a story there. There's a once upon a time to happily ever after, even in an interview, Again, it's one of those unexplainable processes. The world builds itself in your head, which is why research is really important. When you want to build fantastical worlds, read everything that comes your way. Look up pictures. Like I find that visually, if I go to, let's say, DeviantArt, or I look up a lot of Gothic art, and I see a certain picture of a certain place, or even a house, it can trigger off an idea for a world, and that helps. So when you're creating a world, I think you need to put yourself in that space where you're literally like a tourist, where you have to go and look at things, so that then becomes the world.
What did the story take from you, and what did it give you? Like, they say it can take an arm and a leg. Like, what did it take from you?
I think what this book told me, what it gave me, was the confidence that I could actually do this for a living. And what it took from me was maybe a few of my nightmares, I hope. I hope they are gone. I don't know if I've answered your question.
As a child, when you were in school, like elementary school, did any of the teachers say you should
All the
be a
time.
writer? You have an
There was a free
imagination?
period, they would say, okay, Sukanya, come tell a story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much what would happen. So yeah, I've been a storyteller all my life. Noyo's good. Yes, Noyo, what do you want to ask me?
No, once she wanted to ask you, when will you write a baby book?
Oh yeah, very soon. Very soon. I promise to write a children's book this year.
And then what happens after the book is written? There's like this great vacuum.
There is a vacuum. It's like postpartum depression, literally.
Yeah,
It really
must
is.
be,
It
right?
really is. It's very difficult to let go of your book. It's very difficult to not call your editor and your publisher and say, can I change that one thing there? You just want to keep changing things, and you have to let the book go. You have to literally do a healing meditation and let the book go. I had to do that. I literally had to cut cords with my book, saying, I don't want to be so attached. I think all writers go through this. And I think what also happens in that phase is that you also think you've let your book down. It doesn't matter how good your book is. You will always feel you've let your book down. You will always feel you've let your characters down, that you didn't write them well enough, that you didn't do justice to them, that you could have always done a better job. I'm sure all writers face this again, whether it's a screenplay but you do have that feeling. And it's very difficult to tell yourself that, no, it's okay, you've done this now, let it go and let it out in the world and let it fulfill its destiny. So yeah. Thank you so much.